I've presided over thousands of cases in my courtroom, but every once in a while, one walks through those doors that doesn't just test the law. It tests your faith in family itself. This was one of those cases. Because the people sitting in front of me that morning weren't strangers fighting over money. They were a mother and father suing their own son. And the son, he sat there in a tailored charcoal suit worth more than his father probably made in 3 months. Perfect haircut, gold watch, calm posture, no emotion. The kind of man who learned early in life that confidence can look a lot like innocence if you wear it correctly. But I've spent too many years watching liars breathe. I knew within 30 seconds something was deeply wrong with him. The father couldn't even look up when I entered the courtroom. His hands trembled against the table. Fingernails cracked from years of labor. Cheap shoes polished carefully so they'd look respectable in court. The mother looked worse. Not angry, not bitter, broken. That's always the detail people misunderstand about betrayal. Real betrayal doesn't create rage first. It creates humiliation. And humiliation has a silence to it that fills an entire courtroom. I remember adjusting my glasses and looking directly at the son. He didn't look at his parents once, not once. That told me more than any testimony ever could, because guilty people often avoid eye contact with authority, but people who abandon their parents, they avoid eye contact with themselves. The case itself sounded simple at first. Civil dispute, alleged financial coercion, emotional damages, fraud accusations surrounding wedding payments and property transfers. But simple cases don't make old women cry before the first word is spoken, and they definitely don't make courthouse spectators stop whispering the second the evidence binder hits the desk. The bailiff handed me the file. Thick, too, thick for a family misunderstanding. That's when I knew this wedding wasn't really about love. It was about status control and greed disguised as success. I asked the father to speak first. His name was Daniel Mercer, 68 years old, retired mechanic, worked 39 years in the same garage, never arrested, never sued anybody in his life, the kind of man invisible to society until the day he's needed. He stood slowly, clearing his throat twice before words finally came out. Your Honor, we just wanted our son to love us again. The courtroom went completely silent. Not dramatic silence, real silence. The kind where even people shifting in their seats stop moving. I watched the son during that sentence. Nothing, no reaction, no guilt, just irritation. That's when I leaned back in my chair, because emotionally detached people are dangerous in ways the world rarely understands. Angry people explode, cold people calculate. Daniel explained that his son, Ethan Mercer, had become successful in real estate over the last few years. Expensive friends, luxury lifestyle, high-profile engagement, social media image, country club circles. And somewhere along the way, his parents became an embarrassment. I've seen that transformation before. People climb financially and suddenly develop amnesia about who held the ladder steady while they climbed. According to Daniel, Ethan initially invited them to the wedding. They were proud beyond words. His wife apparently cried for 2 straight days after receiving the invitation. Poor parents don't dream about money. They dream about being included. Then came the first request. Money, Ethan told them, the wedding costs had spiraled out of control. He said if they truly loved him, they'd help pay for the venue upgrade. $30,000. Now understand something. For wealthy people, $30,000 can be an inconvenience. For retired parents, it can be survival. I asked Daniel where the money came from. His eyes dropped instantly. That hesitation mattered, because shame always pauses before speaking. We refinanced the house, Your Honor. The mother began crying quietly beside him. And suddenly half the courtroom understood exactly where this story was heading. But not all of it. Not even close. Daniel explained that after they gave Ethan the money, things changed immediately. Pawn calls stopped. Messages became shorter. Visits disappeared. Then came another request. More money. This time Ethan claimed his fiancée's family was contributing more, and he didn't want to look small in front of them. That sentence caught my attention immediately. People reveal themselves through accidental wording. Not "we need help." Not "we're struggling." I don't want to look small. Narcissists fear humiliation more than immorality. That's what makes them ruthless. The mother finally spoke through tears. He said people like us would ruin the wedding. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I slammed my hand against the desk once, quiet. But internally, I was already furious. Because I know exactly what happens psychologically when parents spend decades sacrificing for a child who later weaponizes shame against them. Bachkrans start rewriting history to protect the child. They blame themselves. They minimize abuse. They beg for crumbs of affection from the very person destroying them. And that's exactly what these two had been doing. I turned toward Ethan. "Did you say that to your mother?" He crossed one leg calmly. "No, Your Honor. They're twisting everything emotionally." Smooth answer. Too smooth. Manipulators always attack credibility before facts. Then he smiled slightly. That smile bothered me immediately. Not because it was arrogant, because it was rehearsed. I've watched career scammers use that exact expression when they think emotions make them look superior to ordinary people. Ethan claimed his parents became obsessed with controlling the wedding, claimed they embarrassed him repeatedly around his fiancée's wealthy family. Then he said something I'll never forget. "They don't understand the world I live in now." The mother physically flinched, hearing that, and that reaction. "You cannot fake that kind of pain." I looked directly at Ethan. "The world you live in now? You mean the world they paid for?" The spectators behind him shifted instantly. Pressure. That's what narcissistic personalities hate most. Public pressure. For the first time, his confidence cracked slightly, but only slightly. Then came the moment everything changed. Daniel reached into his jacket slowly and pulled out a folded piece of paper. His hand shook so badly he could barely hold it. "What is that?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "The message he sent us 3 days before the wedding." The bailiff brought it to me. I unfolded it carefully, and the second I read the first line, AB knew this case was far uglier than anyone realized. Because Ethan hadn't just removed his parents from the wedding, he threatened them, not physically, financially. The message read, "If you show up at the ceremony after everything I've done for you, I'll make sure you lose the house completely. Don't test me." The courtroom exploded, gasps everywhere. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a second. I looked up slowly at Ethan, and for the first time since entering my courtroom, he looked nervous. But nervous people tell the truth eventually. Dangerous people get defensive, and Ethan immediately leaned forward. "You're taking that out of context." Out of context, the favorite phrase of people caught saying exactly what they meant. I asked him one simple question. "What did you mean by lose the house?" He hesitated, teeny pause. But pauses are where truth leaks out. Then he answered carefully. "They owed me money connected to an investment arrangement. Investment arrangement. Interesting. Because nowhere in the initial filing did I see investment documents, no contracts, no repayment schedules. Nothing. Which meant one of two things was happening. Either the parents were lying, or Ethan had hidden something very carefully, and suddenly that thick evidence binder made sense. I opened it again. Page after page, bank transfers, Theory paperwork, doc-stec screenshots, dot chains. Then I found one document clipped near the back, a partial property transfer draft, unsigned, but Ethan's name was on it. I felt a chill crawl up my spine because I've seen this pattern before. Children financially trapping elderly parents under the disguise of helping. Slow manipulation, incremental control, a little paperwork here, a little pressure there. Until one day the parents realized they no longer own the life they spent 40 years building. I looked at the mother again. "Did your son ask for ownership in your house?" She broke completely, not loud crying. The worst kind, silent crying, the kind where someone finally realizes the truth out loud for the first time. Daniel put his arm around her as she whispered. He said if we loved him, we'd put the house in his name temporarily until after the wedding. The spectators behind them began murmuring again, but Ethan suddenly snapped. They're lying! And there it was. The mask finally cracking, because truly innocent people defend facts, manipulators defend image. He pointed aggressively toward his parents. They begged to help me. They wanted access to my life. They wanted to be around wealthy people. That sentence changed the entire courtroom atmosphere. You could feel people turning against him in real time, not because of what he said, because of how he said it. Contempt, pure contempt. I've learned something after decades on the bench. The fastest way to expose someone's character is to let them talk longer than they planned to. And Ethan was unraveling now, fast. But I still felt something missing, something bigger hidden underneath all of this. Because people don't usually destroy their parents publicly unless they believe they're protected by something private, and then I saw it. One final document buried in the binder. A document Ethan clearly hoped I wouldn't notice until much later. I stared at it for nearly 10 seconds without speaking. The courtroom became so quiet you could hear someone coughing in the hallway outside. Then I looked up directly at Ethan Mercer, and for the first time that day, A.B. watched the color drain from his face. Because suddenly, I understood why he was so desperate to keep his parents away from that wedding. It had nothing to do with embarrassment, nothing to do with status, nothing to do with wealth. It was about a secret. A devastating secret hidden from his fiancée's family. And the moment I realized what it was, A.B. knew this courtroom was about to explode. The document in front of me was not a contract. It was a police report. And Ethan knew it. His wealthy fiancée's family had never been told that 3 years earlier, Ethan had been investigated for financial exploitation involving an elderly client, no conviction, no trial, no public scandal. Just a quiet settlement and a sealed embarrassment he thought would stay buried forever. I looked at him and said, Mr. Mercer, now I understand why your parents were not welcome at that wedding. His lips tightened. The mother stared at me, confused. Daniel looked like a man who already knew the truth but had been too ashamed to say it. Then I asked the question that changed everything. Did you threaten your parents because they knew about this previous investigation? Ethan stood up, not calmly, not confidently. He shot up like a man whose mask had just been ripped off in public. That has nothing to do with this case. But that's where manipulators always make their biggest mistake. They think volume can replace truth. I told him to sit down. He didn't. So I leaned forward and made my voice colder. Sit down. The courtroom froze. Slowly, Ethan sat. His fiancée, who had been sitting in the back row, covered her mouth with one hand. Until that moment, she had looked annoyed, like she believed this was just a family money fight. Now she looked terrified, because secrets don't only expose the guilty, they also humiliate the people who trusted them. I asked Daniel why he never mentioned the police report in his filing. He looked down and whispered, because he's still our son. That sentence nearly broke the room. That is the tragedy of parents. Even when their child destroys them, they still try to protect the child from shame. But Ethan had not protected them. He had used their love as a weapon. Then the final evidence came in. Security footage from the wedding venue lobby. The screen lit up. Everyone watched. There were Daniel and his wife dressed in their best clothes. The father wore an old Navy suit. The mother held a small gift bag with both hands like it was something sacred. Then Ethan appeared, smiling for guests 1 second, ice cold the next. He pulled his parents aside near a marble pillar. No audio at first, but his body language was undeniable. Finger pointed, jaw tight, shoulders squared like he was disciplining strangers. Then the audio kicked in, his voice echoed through my courtroom. You people are not coming in. You already embarrassed me enough. Give me the rest of the money or I'll finish the house paperwork myself. The mother covered her face. The fiancée stood up in the gallery, and Ethan finally lost control. That video is edited. I stared at him. By whom? He had no answer. That is the moment every courtroom waits for. Not the shouting, not the tears. The silence after a liar runs out of lies. I replayed one line from the footage. Give me the rest of the money, or I'll finish the house paperwork myself. Then I asked, what paperwork, Mr. Mercer? His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Ethan looked at the table. And just like that, the intelligent, controlled, polished son disappeared. What remained was a frightened man caught between greed and exposure. His fiancée walked forward from the gallery and asked, Ethan, what house paperwork? That was the viral moment. The entire courtroom felt it, because this was no longer just a lawsuit. This was a public collapse. Ethan looked at her, then at his parents, then at me. And for the first time, his voice shook. I was going to give it back. That sentence told us everything. He had pressured his parents into preparing a transfer of their home. He had used the wedding, his status, and their fear of losing him to push them closer and closer to signing away the only thing they had left. Not because he needed help, because he wanted control. I ruled clearly. The money extracted under threats and manipulation had to be repaid. The attempted property transfer had no legal standing. Any further intimidation would be treated seriously. But the law was only part of the justice that day. The real punishment happened when Ethan turned around and saw his fiancée remove her ring. She didn't scream, she didn't perform. He simply placed it on the bench behind her and walked out. Sometimes justice doesn't need a gavel. Sometimes it walks away wearing a white dress. Daniel's wife began sobbing, not from victory, from exhaustion. Because winning in court doesn't erase the pain of discovering your child saw you as a bank account. Before I dismissed them, I looked at Ethan one last time. I told him, success without gratitude is poverty wearing expensive clothes. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Then I looked at his parents, two people who had given everything and still blamed themselves for not giving more. I told them what every parent in that courtroom needed to hear. Love your children. Sacrifice for them. Help them when you can. But never let anyone, not even your own blood, turn love into a leash. That day, the courtroom did not cheer. It stayed silent, respectfully silent, because everyone understood the lesson. A wedding is supposed to reveal love, but that wedding revealed the truth. And the truth was this. A son who is ashamed of the hands that raised him will one day lose everything those hands helped him build.